Well, hello, dearie. Today I'm going to be showing you how to be Rumplestiltskin from Once Upon a Time, so let's get started! First, you need a long dark brown jacket. I found mine at a thrift store. Crocodile vinyl enough to go around your neck and down to your waist. Dark brown vinyl, and you want enough to make 2 large cuffs. Suiting dapple fabric in a lightish brown color, and you'll need about half a yard of this. Fluffy tulle fabric, I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but it looks like this, and you'll need enough to make a small scarf. Champagne colored satin, and you'll need approximately 8 inches of this. 12 old-fashioned champagne colored buttons. Dark brown bias tape, needle and thread, black acrylic paint with a paintbrush, and scissors. Other things that I used, but are optional: a sewing machine, fabric Mod Podge, chalk, and safety pins. First, I started off by removing all the buttons from the coat, as well as straps and other things that weren't necessary. Then I looked at a picture of Rumple, and with my chalk, I traced on the coat where I should cut. When I cut my coat, it split into these 2 sections, which I'm going to sew later on. On the collar of my coat, it has this extra piece, so I'm going to cut off the extra piece and leave behind the regular collar. I went ahead and sewed the 2 pieces together. Next, I took the crocodile vinyl and wrapped it around the collar of the coat. Looking onto a picture of Rumple's coat, I trimmed the vinyl to look like his. I then cut the vinyl into a wavy shape because that's what it looks like. On the top, I trimmed off just a bit. After everything is trimmed, you then want to sew the vinyl onto the coat, and I only sewed the 2 inward edges of the vinyl to the coat, if that makes any sense. With the satin fabric, you want to measure out the sleeve's size and add an extra 5 inches. I then folded the fabric together to make a crease, and cut the fabric into 2 pieces, 1 for each sleeve. Then you want to turn the sleeve inside out and place the fabric satin facing down. You want to make folds in the fabric as you sew. This will make it look like the ends of the blouse that Rumplestiltskin wears. Also, be careful you don't sew through the sleeve. After you're done, it should look like this. I also sewed the 2 end parts of the fabric, and don't worry about these stitches that show because once you put the cuff on, they won't be visible. And I wanted more folds, so I went ahead and did that. I then applied some Mod Podge on the edges of the fabric to tame and prevent any fraying. Taking the dark brown vinyl, I measured the sleeve and made it bigger than the actual size, and sewed it together. After sewing on the top, I then sewed again, but this time on a slight angle. I measured the sleeve size, and from there sewed on an angle so that one side is bigger than the other. You want to sew this inside out on the very little space where the satin meets the jacket, so that when you turn it over, it will have this clean edge. And you also want to make sure that the crease in the vinyl is facing outwards instead of in. Now, taking 3 buttons, you want to place them evenly on the crease of the vinyl and sew them on. To make the vest, I took a regular vest and put that inside the coat to use as a sort of template. I then placed the dapper fabric over the vest, and at the bottom I added a few inches where the vest ended. Because I'm not making the entire vest, I only marked where the vest was visible on the fabric and then added an inch on both sides. Then place the fabric in the coat and make a fold in the center. I pinned that in place, then sewed the fabric to the coat. I then took away the pins and cut the fabric like I'm doing here. From this perspective, the right side should be longer and on top of the left side. The best way to do this next step is to try on the jacket and find where it would be a good place to sew the buttons so that the coat fits you nicely. So I went ahead and drew a line where I would sew the buttons, and before you do that, you want to fold the top corners of the fabric. Then arrange the buttons on the left side of the fabric evenly spaced and sew them on. After the buttons were sewn on, I drew little lines on the right side of the fabric where I would cut holes for the buttons to go through. Then I trimmed off some of the excess from the right side of the fabric, leaving just enough for the bias tape to be sewn onto, and you want to place the bias tape all around the edges of the fabric. This next part is the most difficult, which is why I left it for last. So I lifted the collar on the coat and cut the vinyl here and there so that it wouldn't bulk up. I also tried on the coat various times to see where the vinyl fell. After the front looked good, I moved on to the back and clipped a section of vinyl where it wasn't cooperating and cut off a large section. I then cut and arranged pieces of excess vinyl onto the coat and sewed them on. Going back to the front, I have these two end pieces of the collar and I wanted to make it look like it was part of the vest, so I took some of the same fabric and cut it to fit the end corners and sewed them on. And I'm only covering the two ends of the collar because the rest of the collar won't be seen. Underneath the vinyl, it has this yellow color, so if you want to cover that up, you can paint it with some dark brown or black acrylic paint. With this fabric, you want to make a small scarf. Lastly, you want to paint the edges of the vinyl with the black paint, feathering it out as you go towards the center. You want to leave a large section of brown. I recommend you look at a picture of Rumple's coat to more accurately paint this. I forgot to mention this earlier, so in the back you want to make sure that the vinyl has this V-looking shape. To add a little bit more texture, I decided to pinch a section of the vinyl and sew that in place. And now Rumplestiltskin's coat is finally finished. To make Rumple's dagger, you'll need a foam sword. I found this one at Michael's, black acrylic paint, silver metallic paint, a metallic gold and green paint, a picture of the dagger. I found this one online and printed it out, Mod Podge, it can be glossy or matte, whichever one, a big paintbrush, a smaller paintbrush, scissors, an X-Acto knife, a red jewel, and E6000 glue. First, with the X-Acto knife, carefully cut out the white space from around the letters, leaving a small bridge connecting the letters to the rest of the picture. Then cut out as much white space from the details as you can, also cutting out this white space here. The top part of the dagger I decided to leave because it's very difficult to cut. So now it should look like this, and you want to place this onto the sword. I then cut off more of the white space so I could cut the sword more accurately. Then with the X-Acto knife, you want to follow the outline of the picture. At the top of the sword, it had this tube which I didn't know was there, and I accidentally broke it off, but it's okay because it had to come off anyway. And at this point you can cut off the remaining white space from the picture. Then carefully cut off the crossguard from the sword. You will be using it in just a moment. Now at this part of the sword, you're going to be making a smaller crossguard using the pieces you just cut off. So you want to cut them so that they fit that part and then glue them together with some E6000 glue. The dagger should look like this. Now you want to brush some Mod Podge onto the dagger and place the picture on top. If the dagger has little sections where the tube is showing through, simply take some excess pieces and glue them on. Then you want to paint the entire sword with silver paint, including the white spaces between the letters. And if you get little bits of paint onto the letters like I did, simply take a fine point Sharpie marker and fill them in. On the very end of the handle, it has this thing which I'm not sure what it's called, but I took scraps from the crossguard and glued them together, then trimmed it to have this half oval shape. Then you want to cut off some of the handle and glue the half oval shape onto the center. Next, with the black paint, you want to paint the entire handle, basically anything that's yellow and red. Also this little white section on the picture. I then swirled together the green and gold paint, and with a small paintbrush you want to paint a spiral going around the handle. And finally, you want to place a small dot of glue onto the jewel and stick that directly in the center of the half oval shape. And now you have Rumpelstiltskin's dagger. For the makeup, with a little sponge, I covered my entire face and neck with green face paint, carefully avoiding the eye area. Then taking the Revlon Photo Finish foundation, I put some on my sponge and blended it in with the face paint. Then using a bronzer, I put that on top of the makeup. To make my face glittery, I took this golden baked bronzer and sparkle dust and put that all over the makeup. Next, I lined my eyes with black eyeliner and smudged it out. I then curled my lashes and applied mascara, and I also applied false lashes to enhance my eyes. At this point, you would put in eye contacts that matched Rumple's, but I didn't. I then finished off the look by filling in my brows. For the hair, I had it braided into 2 tight braids the night before, and before taking them out, I sprayed them with some hairspray. Then shook out my hair and applied more hairspray. To complete the costume, I'm wearing these really cool leggings that have leather in the front and look just like the ones that he wears. For shoes, I'm wearing these tall lace-up boots. And underneath the jacket, I'm wearing a fuzzy sweater because it's very cold right now. And that's the finished Rumplestiltskin costume. I'm obsessed with it, and I absolutely love the way it turned out. Now, before you go, let's make a deal. And remember, dearie, all magic comes with a price. Yay!
Is it like flashing?
It's just like the up and up.